Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this, our sixth episode of the Road to the Metaverse Executive Series. We're going to wait a couple minutes to get started, so just hang on, and if you wouldn't mind using the chat button at the bottom, it should be enabled. Tell me where you're joining from. Share your city or your country or your state. I'd love to get a sense for where y'all are coming in from. Oh, fantastic. Lots of folks joining. This is great. We have Malaysia. Good, very late evening to you. Berlin. Good afternoon, evening. Argentina, good morning. UK, Ireland, Turkey, Orlando, Minneapolis. I grew up in Minneapolis, very close to home for me, Sean. Palo Alto. We have Portugal, Austria, Salt Lake City, Tel Aviv. Good evening. London, Italy, Austria. Great crew. Looks like we have just about every continent except for Antarctica covered here so far. Another Tel Aviv, Egypt, Michigan, very international group. Nice, France, lovely. One of my dreams is to retire there someday. Finland, wonderful. All right, we're going to get going in about 30 seconds or so here. Again, thank you all for joining. Again, this is our first episode of the year of the Road to the Metaverse Executive Series. This is our sixth overall. If you joined us last year, you saw our host, Ryan Peterson, talk about what the metaverse is from a very high level. You saw Lynette Dijon, the CIO of the Vancouver Airport Authority, come in and talk about the digital twin that they built. You saw Ready Player Me come in and talk about virtual avatars. We had Capgemini join us to talk about some of the work that they're doing in the metaverse. And finally, you had some of our creative agencies come in to talk about some of the work that they're doing with their customers around the world. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a different spin. What you've heard Ryan talk about in the past is that the metaverse is really a spectrum. It is everything from pure games to pure industry and everything in between. And here we have a very special guest joining us today, Jeff Collins, a Senior Vice President from Unity, to talk about Unity Gaming Services and its applicability in the metaverse. Before I introduce Ryan today, excuse me, just a couple housekeeping details. This webinar is going to last about an hour, 57 more minutes. Ryan will come on, then he'll invite Jeff to join. They'll have a fireside chat. Then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, which will last about 15 minutes. You'll see a Q&A button at the very bottom of your screen. Please enter your questions there. I will be moderating the Q&A chat towards the very end of our meeting this morning. We'll address as many questions as we can. The recording will be made available on demand within 2 or 3 days. So look for your email to find that. Feel free to forward it out to coworkers that might have missed this. And finally, thank you again, everyone, for joining. We're really excited to have you here. And without further ado, I'd like to invite Ryan Peterson, our Vice President and Head of Unity Accelerate Solutions, to join. Thank you, Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks for the great introduction, Jeff. And great to be here to kick off the year with Jeff to talk about the work that he's doing within Unity. But to kind of recap one of my last episodes, the root of the metaverse is really entrenched in games. Actually, I talked about some of the experiences all the way back to World of Warcraft, if people go back, or EverQuest, or even Ultima Online. By the way, they still all exist. But the technology and the characteristics are really the same as what a metaverse project is. They're persistent ecosystems. We think that they're social, where we're really grabbing different groups from around the world to experience something that's interactive. And the key is it's multi-platform. They will any device, any screen into this persistent world. And that's whether or not it is on a fun kind of game experience or what we refer to as the industrial metaverse. And it's really interesting. There was like a lot of buzz, I think, over the holidays. We think of generative AI for art. We look at Chat GPT. I think everyone hopefully experiment with this over the holidays, but we talk about this convergence of technologies as it becomes accessible. And that's that kind of crux, that point in time where the metaverse actually appears. There's a lot of the stuff that we dreamed about over the last 10 years of what could be is actually becoming possible. And more of those tech stacks as they mature, more and more and stuff that's in our imagination are going to become accessible for people, for our creators and entrepreneurs around the world to leverage their imagination to create those new experiences. And this is where businesses fundamentally have to prepare for that change for the next version of the internet. And for you to be successful, there's a whole ecosystem of partners and technologies that you need to adopt within your organization, whether it's new content creation services from generative AI, or we talk about holographic technology, different IoT systems linking together to digital identity and social networking, to as we talk about new haptic and auditory experiences. But combining those pieces is what creates those experiences that billions of people are going to want to come to as you rethink your business and you rethink how you engage with the consumer. But these new systems candidly are complex. This is just a quick diagram that I presented in the first episode, talking about the infrastructure that you need, whether it's voice services, all the different operations and cluster performance to handle, frankly, millions of players or consumers in one instance, or in terms of just creating local instances in your own ecosystem of technology. These are complex projects that you need to think about who your partners are going to be to be able to ensure that you can deliver on the experiences that you're imagining. And to be able to do that, it's not just tech. You also got to think about your workforce, whether it's new content creators working in 3D is a new environment. But another aspect of the business is the back end, network engineering, DevOps. I can tell you that there's been lots of talk about layoffs in industries, but they're not laying off people that are experts in AI, that are experts in developing these large scale systems in the back end at these businesses. These are going to be critical skill sets and critical partners that you need to have to be able to fulfill what the next generation of the internet is going to be. And just as with anything, as over time, these experiences are going to become richer and richer. We think of a game when I started in the industry many years ago, you can create a game experience of 1 or 2 people, but some of the big interconnected experiences are frankly thousands of people. To be able to create the infrastructure is thousands of man years. So, and I kind of asked this question is, where do you start? When you think of who are your partnerships and your tech stacks going to be to realize this, because you can't just go out and frankly in this economy and say, here's my business plan. And it's 1,000 people to start and 2 years journey to be able to have a technology tech stack to realize your idea or your business plan. And so this is a key mindset, is that this is a journey that your business is going to take. And so as you're retooling your tech stacks and your workforce, if you talk about taking those first steps, those first basic pieces that you need to start to work in towards your business for that full business transformation, the future state of, we talk about this interconnected worlds and economies, live and efficient workforces, new ways of working, new ways of communicating, new ways of entertainment. But there's that process that you need to go through as a business. And that's why I'm excited to have Jeff Collins here today to talk about our Unity gaming services. Now, Jeff, I am going to tell you to cross out the gaming at some point, but to start thinking about the technology that we've been developing at Unity for the last 15 years is more and more apparent, well, not just apparent, necessary for you to think about how do you build upon these new experiences, leveraging, frankly, the thousands of man years that we've invested so that you can set yourself up to realize what's in your imagination for your business as the world adopts real-time 3D. So if Jeff, you can come on, and then I'm going to stop sharing and you can get started with your presentation.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for inviting me. I'm going to share my screen. And you may note that I wore my official Unity Gaming Services t-shirt today so I could represent our team. We're really excited to present to you all today. We think this is an amazing opportunity. But the interesting thing is what Ryan said is he set the context of he's going to try to convince me to get that word gaming scratched off the top of this thing today. But first, I'll echo back what Ryan said. I've been at Unity for 5 years, and I've been working on some type of cloud service for gaming for about 5 years. And Unity Gaming Services, therefore, is super focused on game studios. It needs to be so that we understand the exact customer we're talking to. But what I'm going to do is tell you about it today, and then we'll talk at the very end on how to extrapolate that to business. To make one key point, Unity's investing heavily in gaming services. We're going into the cloud to enable games to run their business on top of our services. That investment is intended to first support our core business of games. But right now, which I can't really announce yet, there's a bunch of stuff in the background that I'm going to talk about today going into non-gaming, and I look forward to the fireside chat. But Metaverse has its roots in games. So let's talk first about, well, what am I talking about today? I'm talking about Unity Gaming Services, which is itself a platform. And what we have been trying to set up over the past 3 years is a solution to solve the challenge of building and running live games with a singular modular platform that includes multiplayer services, what we call game operations, which is that notion of live ops, user acquisition and monetization. And you'll know that I'm always putting a monetization, I got to actually present too. I'm always putting a little bit of a monetization twist on what we talk about here, because this is one of the topics I want to bring out to you all today. When we talk about Unity Gaming Services, it's tech to help you run your game. And what we've seen in the industry over the past 5 years, especially with the beginning of Fortnite, is most games are coming out no longer as a single binary that you run on your device. They're connected in some way. And they are run by studios who need to be able to think about not only the player experience, but also their bottom line. Unity Gaming Services runs the whole gamut of services to help you build and run your game, especially for challenging tech like multiplayer. Operate your game, make sure your players are not only enjoying themselves, they're coming back, and ultimately running a business on top of that game. We can apply a lot of those concepts way beyond gaming into other industries. So what I want to do is I'm going to walk through the services in Unity Gaming Services, and then we'll go into some discussion about how those apply. So I always love talking to studios, especially those who are into serious investments like AAA studios who are making big games for big dollars and they need return on investment. And I will sit down and talk to them about, I was just talking to a recent round of customers a couple of months ago. You go to the studio and they talk about, well, we're going to build a AAA game. It's $100 million of investment just to get in, just to get it launched. So they're playtesting. And then the same person will sit there, and it's the studio head, and they'll say, well, and then, you know, if it playtests well and we can tell that there's something there, well, then I'm going to go hire a whole team of, I got to rehire a BI team. I need a whole data platform behind the game, because then we're going to talk about engagement and, you know, optimization. And then he's like, well, you know, on the other hand, I guess I know Unity, you all do monetization. I guess I should tell you that then usually after I hire the BI team, then I go hire a monetization team that's in charge of actually making our business work on top of this game. And I'm like smiling as I listen to him. And you listen to that challenge from studios, and a lot of industries who are now trying to invest in the metaverse are thinking the same things, like, how do I put all this together? In the end, I have a business goal. But if you listen to that studio head, that's a long journey to get there. And it's an expensive one because the services are all fragmented. Even the staffing is all fragmented. There's no concept of a core notion of data across the whole AAA game, but that's a $100 million investment. Are you kidding? So then they're going to have to do total cost of ownership to do a lot of work to integrate all the data sources. And then all the tooling doesn't add up to anything. On a daily basis, you're trying to run this game. The tools are complicated and inaccessible. UGS was built to solve exactly this. The services you need, connecting data and insights so that you can actually run your business. and then simple tools at your at your fingertips, so your staff is efficient in operating this business initiative that you invested heavily in. That's what UGS is built to solve. So you might categorize the major functional areas of something like UGS as, let's build. So that's going to be tech underneath the game that helps operate the game, especially for connected or very complex tasks like multiple users interacting with the game. We have some of the highest scale games on earth running on Unity Gaming Services today because of that tech. And as Ryan pointed out when he started, that's thousands of man years of effort to get the tech correct. So now it's available to you to take off the shelf. And then at the core of UGS is keeping that game running and vibrant, and what we call in the game industry LTV for the player. You want to be able to make it so that the player has fun, and in return, the financial payback for you as a company makes it profitable to continue making that game, engaging your players. And finally, the techniques with which you monetize your game, that's how you grow your business. So let's kind of take a layout and look at the one-step drill down into the services in UGS. So building your foundation is going to have multiplayer tech. And when I say multiplayer, for all of you who are coming from non-gaming, think of that as simulation, but it's interactive simulation. So in gaming, we call it multiplayer. But in where we're taking UGS is going to be into a place where that's simulating something, and it could be an e-commerce purchase, or maybe a family is looking at a house together, or maybe there's this industrial workplace where there's some kind of physics simulation happening and people are all involved with it, interacting with it. So that's what we mean by multiplayer in gaming extrapolated to industry. Identity and accounts, configuration and management. So there's a lot of things you have to do to be able to tune parameters of your experience without having to reship a whole game binary. That's all part of building. In engagement for UGS, you'll have analytics and content management, because as I talked about, I described with Fortnite, Fortnite makes its living off of having season after season after season of content updates. Something has to change over time. It can't just be the same initial deployment. When you all are thinking about building something into the metaverse, to get your investment ROI, you want to think about it as a continuum where you're constantly and continuing to update. In fact, the whole topic of engagement relates to data. And so analytics is behind that, and there's a whole data feed underlying all of UGS that all of the services contribute to, and you can put your own data into. Player engagement, which we might talk about, is maybe employee engagement or consumer shopper engagement in non-gaming context. That's all part of underlying UGS solution for games. And then we actually have community solutions, which includes things like voice and text chat and other community building activities like leaderboards, gamification. And finally, I talked about Grow. And for those who know Unity, you know that we build a big business from our ability for studios to monetize their games, the ability for them to make payroll so they can pay the employees that build their games. And so we have a lot of monetization tools, and even that's fundamentally changing in the metaverse. UGS is embracing the existing standards, but and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But then I'm going to show you a little bit kind of on our short-term roadmap where we're going beyond the established models in gaming and then even beyond gaming. Okay, so let's drill in a little bit more into the underlying mechanical services behind UGS for building games. There's authentication, there's player save of data, so you don't have to write that, you don't have to actually try to spin up databases. If you're investing in a metaverse project, it really is about state and data and capturing data and letting the players or the users of your solution have agency to create and have durable and persistence. That's cloud save. On the multiplayer side, we have something called game server hosting. Again, think of that as simulation where players are interacting with the simulation with their own clients being synchronized with it. Then matchmaking, this is a very game-centric notion of making sure the right people with the right skills play each other, a lobby for people to wait, relay services for peer-to-peer networking, and a Unity Engine plugin for writing networked game objects that go from the client view all the way to the server view synchronized to all the other players. And then for configuration and management, the highlight here is remote config. When you know you want to tune something about the experience after everybody has had the experience deployed into their browser or as an app, remote config allows you to change the settings by which people see the experience, and you can even create segmentation that allows you to have different game experiences from different parts of your audience. Also, there's the economy part for virtual currencies. And then we have a built-in UGS serverless compute module that allows you to write simple scripting code for server authoritative code. And then a ability to deliver content to the cloud, to the CDN. And so just to highlight multiplayer solutions, the thing I would want you to walk away with from UGS is we have some of the highest scale games on earth. We've had games go over several million concurrently connected users. Our whole platform has in the tens of millions of concurrently connected users, synchronously connected. And if those connections break, it's not a good player experience and the studio isn't achieving their results. So keeping that amount of scale live, that's our claim to fame. And so when we think about the value proposition, it's engine agnostic. Interestingly enough, what you'll find from us in Unity Gaming Services as we try to help you with your non-gaming use cases is we're not stuck on the Unity engine. Unity engine is a wonderful way to do simulation, but we also are engine agnostic, meaning we also will support Unreal and other game engines. And what we're providing is resilience and scale and management of your solution. So it runs over time. Building something great, that's cool, that's a good demo. Keeping it running and effective and optimized for your business, that's where the hard part is. So we can support multiplayer games at any scale. We can build great matches to deliver great player experience. Get started and launch faster with self-service access so you can do it yourself. What's interesting about these products is you buy them off the shelf, and a lot of times you have to have solutions and consultants, solution providers and consultants implement for you. We provide self-service access so you can actually train yourself to do some of the things. The other thing is I often will talk to people about, yes, it's low-level tech and it's a platform, but what we're talking about is a better player experience. We build that tech for a reason, giving the user a better experience. That's the hallmark of multiplay. And UGS in general. And so we integrate with the tools you already use. You can integrate it to other business systems, especially as we go past gaming into e-commerce and industry. And we can launch with this the services trusted by some of the biggest games on earth. All right. The other thing about engagement is, just to make the key point, we have analytics, which has a set of normal capabilities you see in analytics, player engagement, which helps you use tools to bring people back. You want to have a re-engagement campaign, push notifications, A/B testing to find the right content solution. Our community solutions are there to create stickiness. We want to have players feel like there's a place to go, and you will interact with other players. Hopefully you're not being a jerk, because then we can talk about anti-toxicity so we can get the jerks out. And so it's a fun place to be in a community. And then we can monitor performance. But the key idea with this slide, and I do want to draw a focus on the analytics for a minute, is if you're thinking about investing in a metaverse solution or some of these next-gen solutions, because in the end, they're just new types of interaction for your users, whatever they are. They may be employees, they may be shoppers, you may be in in live entertainment, and it's the concert goer. This real-time 3D revolution is just a new form of interaction, and behind all those interactions is data. So when we talk about building solutions and recovering and recouping your investment from those solutions and building with a partner who can help you with these things, data, I would urge you to think about, is one of the most important assets of the solution you build, because it's going to help you optimize over time and know how your first investment needs to be improved, and you can get the benefit long-term. And then, just a notion again on scale of Unity in general, but Vivox in specific, 125 million MAU, which is, this is the most widely deployed voice solution for games. Very exciting on how this community solution works. So a couple more points. I just want to pause briefly and say, UGS is also about the bottom line, and it ties the tech we talked about in the platform to running a business. And so historically, you may all know there's Unity ads, there's in-app purchases with virtual currency, there's acquiring users, and in the metaverse, Web3 is coming. I'll talk about that in a second. But what the point is that if you build your tech correctly from the start and your foundation is correct, being effective in achieving an ROI and running a business on your creation, whether it's a game or beyond games, is a lot easier. And that's why we tie all these tools together. You can see how the studios benefit, because then at the very end, it's easy to plug in their monetization techniques on the platform with the data they already got from UGS. So as you all know, Unity Ads has traditionally been a large business for Unity. We're a market leader in Unity Ads. Level Play is the ironSource acquisition for monetization. In-app purchases is virtual currency. Our customers, when they engage with us on how to run their business, they see lift. And as I introduced in the beginning, I spent a lot of time in the ads business at Unity, so I know something about running a game. So just in summary, I wanted to just show you the breadth of the solution. It is ever expanding. Over the course of the year, there's going to be more and more. You can see highlighted in blue a couple of key things I want to talk to you about as we bridge into the fireside chat. But this is just the beginning, and we're investing in this as Unity for the long term to solve the big picture of how do I leverage this new type of interaction, this new phase of the internet called metaverse. So what's next in games? Toxicity. We're producing a screen that shows the top 20 jerks in your game. We're going to give you a button to kick them out or put them onto Jerk Island, whatever you're going to do. Everybody wants that solution because community has that dark side. User-generated content is going to be a key thing. We want players to have agency. Think Second Life. You can drop a cube on the beach and everybody can watch you manipulate that cube. That's a very fun, neat aspect of the Roblox type of the world that's kind of emerging. Persistent Worlds is going to be in Unity Gaming Services, where out of the box, you can actually do world building and you have the tech already assembled for you. And play area and creator economies. This is where we're talking a little bit about Web3 and how you can change the way commerce works if you're going to leverage something like wallets and maybe even a little bit of blockchain technology. And then in the non-gaming space, we're already working with, it's early days, because remember, I had to focus UGS to solve the clear customer need in gaming. And I came from a gaming background in monetization. But in industry, we're also going to be very focused on providing solutions that are specialized. You'll see us take UGS in a lot of ways, rebrand it, just the way Ryan asked me to cross out that gaming word. We're going to actually, during this year, provide more and more bundles out of the box to make your assembly of your non-gaming solution easier, but it's all the same fundamentals. So beyond games, we could talk about multi-user simulation and interactions. You could talk about an industrial use case, or even the Vancouver airport, where consumers are in a digital twin, but they're all able to interact with each other within that digital twin. And so that's a use case within the services of UGS, because we're able to keep running and maintaining those simulation experiences in the server side with our server orchestration tech. Voice and text communication, critical that we are able to communicate, and it's super fun to communicate live, whether you're in a game or you're in a shopping experience or you're in an entertainment event. Voice and text communication is huge, just like we're using it here on Zoom. Using data for decision-making, I can't emphasize enough. You might as well do a good job if you're going to do it at all, and part of that is getting data, including interaction simulations, or maybe in deep industry, IoT events, and you're trying to predict what happens with data events that are being emitted from your solution into the analytics platform. Testing, optimizing, engaging with analytics and content management for consumer experiences, and then ultimately consumer commerce tie-ins with economies of monetization. The whole NFT splitting of funds and the back payment to the manufacturer, something is going to change about commerce with some degree of NFT in the next 10 years. And so UGS is beginning to explore package up and make these tools available for all of you. All right. So that was the story of UGS so far. What do you think, Brian?
That is awesome. So first of all, thanks for that. And I think just to start with, and I think just on the non-gaming side, you actually mentioned shopping. So think about, what is your vision? Talk about like new consumer experiences and how is UGS, cross out the G, going to support that?
Well, I mean, so shopping experiences are, when you go look at the data, if I was just reading some reports, and if you actually just ask consumers, do you find it more favorable if you're able to interact with a 3D version of the product you'd like to buy? Like 2/3 or more are already saying, and we're early days, 2/3 or more are saying, well, that's much more favorable for me for shopping. So when you think about Unity Gaming Services behind shopping, well, what do you see? You see, well, some simulation. So we could imagine extended shopping experiences where more than one person is interacting with the thing you're trying to buy, a house. And then obviously with analytics, you're talking about, analytics is all about the consumer experience. And so whether we're talking about shopping, whether we're talking about live entertainment events, like how are people engaged? And so UGS is sort of, remember, I've been trying to put a business spin on UGS because that's what it is to the studios. It's the ability to be effective, and shopping is one of the most, you need to be heavily optimizing that experience when you're building one of those solutions.
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing. I mean, the world's moving to 3D, but you also work with 2D solutions. It's like the interactive seems to be like a key piece. And then one of the pieces, just in the interactive context, think about scale. Like I only have a 50-person experience. Like, do you support small experiences to large? Maybe talk about, if I like, what type of business and time would I want to interact?
Yeah, I mean, so remember that we're investing heavily in UGS, and because we focus on gaming right now, what you find us going for is we're going for super high scale, millions of players interacting at the same time. And so it takes energy, and actually is a different implementation to go for lower scale concurrent implementation, but that's what we're going to be focused on this year. And what that generally revolves around is just having a physics simulation, which you built in Unity or Unreal, and you put it into a hosted environment, and the server orchestration is taking care of it. Some customers will ask us, okay, cool, I don't want matches like Fortnite. I don't want only 50 users. I want 100,000 users all in the same instance. And it's because they're seeing Travis Scott live, Yeah. And so some of that's coming up too. And what we're implementing sharding, we're implementing some horizontal scale out, and you're going to see us do a lot more of that so that it's more non-gaming or beyond gaming stylized interactions with a simulated environment.
No, I think that's a key piece, because that's really, you are basically building a simulation for whatever your product or experience is going to be, whether it's internal for your business or an external experience. Maybe take a look at, like, it kind of was my question around like which businesses need to start, but actually I mentioned like workforce planning. So on your side, I'm in business, I'm interact with you. What's the team I need on my side to actually take advantage of everything that you're building?
Okay, so, and you mean like if we were going to, one of our customers wants to invest and they're trying to build a solution, how do I get started? Is that kind of?
I'm a consumer-based business. They're going to like, okay, I'm all in. I see the vision of the internet is actually interactive. It's 3D. It's persistent. Ignore the name metaverse. It's going to change. Whatever the next generation internet is going to be. Where do I start? Like, what's the team I need on my side?
Yeah, well, so I'm going to echo what a lot of people will say, because if I try to get you started, I'm an advocate. I'm all in. I'm sold, right? And so I would go big. But what I would constantly tell my team, especially the product management, is, okay, pull back a little bit. We're the innovators, but the customer has to be ready for what we're trying to do. The biggest thing you'd want to do is start small. You want a small initiative that you prove to yourself you're capable, and a partner that shows you that it's rock solid when you do. So a team might say, oh, I'm interested in engaging with Unity on my e-commerce needs. And so I might partner with you, Ryan, on the Unity side for a services group that would come in and train me how to do those things. I might have a small technical staff, but remember, I'm from monetization. I know about like financial goals. I have a small initiative I plan, and I'm going to prove its effectiveness, whether that's an engagement or bottom line. And then let's reach that point. Let's do some implementation, pay in, reach that point and say, yes, we know how to do this now. Then I'm going to do phase 2 and then phase 3. So I think it's getting started with knowing a little bit about our tech, knowing a little bit about your business, e-commerce, shopping, whatever, contacting you, Ryan, to get some experience from other customers who have done similar things, and then set a small goal.
Yeah, I think that the simplicity, and I do see a lot of that, is that we see experiences. You're like, well, that's 5 years of work. And
Yeah.
like, how do you get like something out there in maybe the
Right.
first 6 months and then start the iterative process? Because I think that's the key is creating a live experience and then continue the iteration process. And so maybe talk about, I mean, you mentioned about like data-driven decisions, how to
Yep.
use analytics. It's a big part of our business. And I think underrepresented actually even our marketing and stuff. So it's great to have you here. Maybe just talk about like, what is the process of setting up just an analytics package if I have a current, say, interactive experience?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could go literally to a GitHub repo right now and download Block Your Friends, which our support team created, and has all the UGS services, and you'd see how it emits events. But let's break it down simpler than that. Our analytics package is quite simple. And in fact, some of our UGS services, like virtual economies, will emit analytics events without you doing anything if you put the virtual economy in the game. But you can call, it's very similar. You'd find a lot of the API calls similar to Google Analytics. It's just instrumentation of an experience, and then using that data to decide how you would want it better in the future. So if I were to get started with data as my key premise of how I'm going to do well in this endeavor, I'm going to put in, try to design my initial experiment of my experience. It may be for a shopper, or it may even be for industry. And then I'm going to say, what am I trying to track, and how would I know I was doing well? And you'll make a mistake at first. The data won't be quite right, but you'll build that discipline. And then you make an iteration on it. And you say, now I really know what I'm tracking. Is, do they ever make it past the tutorial? And maybe I'm even doing an internal employee knowledge base, or maybe I'm doing something that's an industrial actual simulation application. And you still need a tutorial because the employees are getting trained on it. How are they getting through that tutorial? And then what do they do after they take that tutorial? All of that is based on data. All of that is actually drawing inference. Am I being as effective as I could be with this solution? So I think data is going to underlie almost any kind of application of the metaverse one could think of.
Yeah, and I think it's unleashing data for people to use. I mean, it's just very interesting. I was just thinking, I'm not going to age ourselves, but I've been through the 2D to 3D transition, but I've also been through like doing maybe a single player experience to multiplayer experience to a live experience in the game industry. And actually just be able to, it's a completely different mindset. And I think businesses are going to go through the same kind of transition as they're going to be able to interact with their customers in a completely different, almost forum is one of the words I started to think about with your user base. You mentioned Web3, and there's a lot of conversations around it. We can talk about like the people talk metaverse winter, the Web3 winter. I've said like, you say NFT, people think scam, but I was actually talking to Timu from Reddit Player Me, and part of our discussion was, I say like NFT, I think of building your community. I think some of the technologies that are coming out is driving a community experience around whatever brand or your, whatever you say, player economy, whatever your consumer economy is going to be. Maybe just talk about how UGS is going to help facilitate that transition from Web 2 to Web 3.
Yep. Well, I mean, if we're going to focus on the Web3 that is more related to the commerce stuff, I'll touch on that for a second. So the first statement is that, we believe in UGS that we are in the midst of a crypto winter, that it's not a forced deal. I'm not trying to go talk someone into doing NFTs in their game. That's not a thing. But what I want us all to remember is that commerce is, and frankly, banking, and even things like title for your house are changing, and the blockchain technology that's out there has implications on all those things. So if you really go past another couple of years, the Ponzi scheme issue and some of the problems we have today are going to be worked on and be improved. When I think about what the potential of what blockchain actually does, that's interesting, that I think from any kind of business perspective, we may want to keep our eye on. Yeah, and we're investing in UGS in talking about blockchain technologies. You think about smart contracts, and really at the end of the day, it's not so much the NFT. NFT is a manifestation. It's something that became popular, but the smart contract idea is something even more universal, which is I could be a creator and I create something. Maybe I create a Roblox game. Maybe I'm at a concert event and I'm adding like memorabilia for the artist, and it's my unique intellectual property, kind of like eBay. And what you do is you offer those for sale, and what the person is purchasing is an NFT governed by a smart contract, where the original creator keeps getting paid as it gets transferred. And so new types of commerce, let's defocus on the crypto hype and the Ponzi scheme stuff. New types of commerce are inherent in the implementation. That's where UGS gets interesting, because remember my focus on monetization. We're looking at ways that businesses can help run themselves based on new types of offers, sometimes powered by things like blockchain.
You know what? I'm going to just quote your last like 5 sentences is perfect, because I think it's the foundational piece of what we call the creator economy. And I got to say that I couldn't be more excited about that. But the technology, the baseline that we need, the implementation, it's still being worked on. And you're going to get these little blips in that have been happening. Just they weren't ready, and assume good intent, but they weren't ready for prime time. And so those are the pieces, is you're thinking about not just your consumer base, but what is the creator economy that's helping facilitate that ecosystem around whatever your brand is. I think that's the exciting piece for brands and companies to think about. So the other piece is, I guess, when are you taking the G out of UGS? You have me convinced.
Unity Gaming Services. So when am I taking the gaming out? We're kind of talking about things. On behalf of my engineers, I don't do dates. So let me just tell you that. But because I'm an ex-engineer, but I will tell you that during 2023, we're going to reinvest in getting the branding straight for all you who are interested in doing something non-gaming. Today, you could use UGS, and Ryan and I are aligned on this. We're ready to go. I mean, those are just services that help you, but I need to create better packaging for you to understand and maybe even prototype yourself. So we see that as a frontier for 2023. Very, very exciting within our team internally about how to repackage that stuff. You'll see a couple of announcements coming from Unity over the next couple of quarters.
Awesome. Jeff, you came online, and this is where I guess we start Q&A with our guests.
All right, let's get going. No surprise to Ryan, lots of great questions. We're up to 31, so we're gonna try to get through them as fast as we can. Jeff, I'm gonna start with you and do a bit of a rapid fire. There's a lot of questions related to UGS technology. So, I think these are probably quick responses. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna throw a few of them at you.
Yep.
First is, what's the tech stack underneath UGS? So are you leaning heavily on .NET, C#, or is there something else?
There's a lot of modes of that question, but the tech stack is a multi-cloud tech stack. We have, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I'll just tell you, we have parts of UGS running on AWS, GCP, and Azure, and bare metal. And bare metals for costs reasons. So we find you have to do that because that's what it takes to make a cloud solution that applies to many different situations. And then underlying that, if you use cloud code, which we talked about for server authoritative, it's able to be in C# or in TypeScript if you want it to be. And then we're offering 2 types of persistence. One isn't released yet, but the other one is just an API for cloud safe. And then we're actually going to be investing in a database as a service solution for more extended needs. Plus, there's a persistent worlds stylized persistence model behind the scenes.
Okay, perfect. Continuing with the rapid fire, is this a replacement for UNet?
Oh, thank you for asking that. I This has been one of my life missions at Unity. If I leave Unity, I will first have had to replace UNet. I have studied UNet, I've used UNet. I was a hobbyist of Unity before I came to Unity. And UNet had a great initial value proposition and fell flat on its face and then was deprecated without a replacement. It is my mission to make sure that you never think of UNet as having had any relevance in your life. UGS is the answer, and it's still got a couple of little things we're trying to close out this next quarter, but I feel pretty good about it.
Great. All right. Continuing. Is this compatible with WebGL utilizing WebSockets?
Yep. So some of our services do that today. You can do a WebGL integration to our analytics backend. We are investing in peer-to-peer relay support for WebGL as well. That's not there yet. That's on our roadmap. WebGL, because of its business focus, as opposed to apps, which are more gaming focused, we are going to be investing in heavily in WebGL support for UGS this year.
Okay, great. Will this work with console builds?
Yep. Yeah. So that's because of our AAA pedigree.
Yep. Awesome. And then a question about blockchain. Will there be more integrated authentication process for blockchains such as Solana?
Yeah. So there are many different blockchain providers and technology-oriented companies that are talking to us today about partnerships. We're trying to navigate. Remember, I'm a advocate that we're in crypto winter for a reason, because some of the ideas that were coming out at first weren't quite smart. So we are going to be embracing, though, what the technology lets us achieve for the benefit of our studios. One of those is identity. And so in the next, I'd say, year or so, we have something called Passport, which is a Unity branded thing we haven't actually launched yet. That's an internal code name. They won't have that name when it launches. So that is an investment in identity across games. And we are still trying to solve that problem. It will increasingly tie into blockchain over time.
Okay, perfect. I'll take a break from the tech questions and ask you a more thoughtful question, then shift over to Ryan here in a second. You spoke a lot about UGS in games. You spoke a little bit about UGS beyond games, specifically in commerce opportunities. Can you speak a little bit about other opportunities that you see for UGS in the future and in other industries, perhaps manufacturing, infrastructure, others?
Well, I mean, Accenture. So, remember we talked about the metaverse a lot, and the next wave of the internet is a lot about experience and interactions. So you're always going to put those in the forefront right now. Those are the most reachable solutions that we think of. And so, if you go look at Accenture, will tell you that they've put 150,000 people through their training metaverse. That's an internal corporate use case, non-gaming related, non-commerce related, that's specifically about engaging the employee in a way that gives them a more rich experience when they're working from home or any kind of training. So that's, an example where experience kind of rules right now. And then if you think about slightly related to commerce, but let's just call it more, still having a consumer, our architecture and construction is obviously huge. Knowing that you could work on building a house and you don't just see it in CAD anymore. You actually get to walk through the house, and then you're having the house built, or you're selecting from several houses, and you just get a sense for how it feels. That's one of the biggest scary things about committing to a house is is this really going to work for my family? So that is an experience, but it's not exactly commerce. It's related to a business that is trying to solve a building problem. If you go into deep industry like any kind of manufacturing or chemical production or anything like that, so first and foremost, the training becomes rigorous at that point, and the needs of being able to simulate to be able to cut costs by making sure that you've perfected your processes first before you actually commit them to hardware. That's a key win in an industry that's like deep manufacturing. And again, here with Unity Game Services under the covers, I'm kind of a believer that, you could match up your IoT data with your simulation data and see if you agree between your digital twin and the real world. And then that's where the analytics really shines, because it's all about data at that point.
Yeah, just building on that thread, especially manufacturing, there's logistics, what's going out of your building, but I also call it reverse logistics, what's actually coming in at the same time, and be able to simulate those connections. And that's where I think when we think of interactive, it's the interaction of data in a simulated environment, multi-user. So it's not just 2 people, but 1,000 people experiencing something. And is it the right feel? Is it the right safety requirements? Are you getting buy-off in terms of regulatory approvals across the different pieces that you need to? Like, there's just really interesting use cases that are derived from leveraging a common platform and a common data set for your experiences.
For sure.
Right. Jeff, that house example really resonated with me. My wife and I just finished building a house that took almost 2 years, and I'm not a visual person, and there were many times that I wished that I could see what would this tile look like against this floor, against this countertop cabinet. So I just had to trust my wife, who is, but I could easily see where that would be just incredibly valuable.
I had a very real experience. As a quick anecdote, we wanted to do a ring. I wanted to buy a ring for my wife, or we hadn't done that in many, many years, and it was just a keepsake token. And we went into a jeweler, and I said, "Do you do anything custom?" And he sat me down at a tool, which was a Unity-like tool. And he built the ring in front of us in 30 minutes, and then we fabbed it and ordered it. And so that's an example of real world digital twin, mass customization, and an experience with a salesperson right there.
That's great. Hey, all right, Ryan, I'm gonna start with a softball for you. I think you'll like this one. We always seem to get one of these every time, which is probably a good thing. Do you provide professional services if we wanted to bring a developed game into UGS?
Yeah, the words yes. Actually, we offer like a range of services. We actually have an individual consulting team. So if you have a development team and you need a rock star to help do final implementation or optimization, we can definitely support that. But we also work, as kind of Jeff articulated, the simplicity, that first step. So we have an envisioning team, a design team to really think through what it means for your business. What is the right idea? Then implementation team, and we call this kind of the X with our client. Either we can continue to the end, or we do these handoff where we're helping build your team and your muscle internally and hand off as you go. So we support, it's very important. It's like our goal is just platform being adopted. So whether it's supporting existing team or it's doing something custom handoff or going to full development, it's really a wide range to ensure we're supporting the work that he's bringing to games and non-games.
Perfect. Ryan, there's a lot of interest in chat and in the Q&A around work that Unity is doing in various sectors, maybe beyond UGS right now, but would you mind talking a little bit about some of the work that your team has done in automotive, mechanical, medical industries? Those three have been called out a few times.
Yeah, so I mean, we're very fortunate to be working with a lot of the major automotive manufacturers. One of the things that was announced last year was our close partnership with Hyundai, creating a digital twin with one of their major smart factories. And so just a lot of the work that Jeff talked about, like that so digital twin, manufacturing, that's the work that we're really pioneering with our tier 1 customers. And then we're working in adjacent industries. So from mining industries, to think about how, especially when we think of our different climate goals, optimizing how we actually do extraction. These are benefiting not just in terms of dollar cost of extraction, but in terms of just the energy it takes to do the work that we need to do to mine the materials we need to drive adoption of electrification. So there's a lot of different adjacent industries that we work within where you can really do a digital twin of everything. So also a lot of work in smart cities across the world. So I think one aspect that I think is really unique to us is that we have a global footprint. So we do a lot of work in the APAC and SAPAC region, so Southeast Asia, obviously North America, South America. Then we have a huge European team to handle all the way down to the Middle East. So really a global footprint and all adjacent industries which are adopting digital twins or the industrial metaverse, as well as games.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Jeff, back to you. You mentioned Accenture and the large opportunity for training. Do you have experience working with clients who want to integrate your tech stack with a LMS platform that they might be working on, a learning management system platform?
It is early days for us, as Ryan was pointing out and continues to point out. When you target a name like Unity Gaming Services at the market, what you're going to get is a lot of game, and necessarily so. We have to be super focused to do a good job for our users. LMS, other types of interactions, there's a whole list of pipeline stuff going on right now within Unity. I can't even mention the specific names. We're not seeing as much LMS yet, but that is a primary use case. We're seeing a lot of automotive. We're seeing a lot of even out into entertainment space and some manufacturing. And so, over time, though, as we open the doors, and I think that has a lot to do with how I explain UGS to a non-game audience, we're going to, I think, unleash the floodgates, because that's what we've been investing and building towards.
Fantastic. Ryan, back to you. Is it possible to use real geospatial data to develop a digital twin of a real city from digital terrain models, aerial images, 3D buildings? I know this is something you can speak to.
Yes. So the word is yes. And so we actually have the great thing, and frankly, about Unity is we really work with, I call it the octopus of data. So we can take in and stream any data set. And as Jeff was articulating, it's how that data interacts in simulation that creates that opportunity for, I think, business transformation. And then you add multiplayer user environment. So not just stream in the data, but combine it with Jeff's technology and analytics to drive better engagement for whatever problem that you're trying to solve.
Great. I thought this one was an interesting one, Ryan, for you. I'm curious myself. What industry publications do you read? Do you follow? How do you and your team, and Jeff, open to you after Ryan answered, how do you stay up to date on current XR trends?
Well, number one is we're users of the technology. So I think the biggest thing is that we're very fortunate to work with a variety of different partners, is that as Unity, we're working for not just the technology today, but we're really working on tech stats that can be released 3, 5, 10 years from now. So we definitely have a strong point of view in the future because we're working on the future. And so I think that really allows, when you work with us, we say we kind of give you guardrails. One, we support a whole device stack for a long period of time, which means you have billions of users. But we also are working on the future devices. So you're always going to be within range. You're not going to lose your investment. We're not going to be unsupported platforms and you're kind of lost on like a small island of a user base. So that's a critical piece. And just like one interesting fact, last year we had 45 billion downloads of a runtime. That's just how ubiquitous our technology is. And that is, you can use us really as your business transformation platform.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick couple. So, for those of you who are just trying to track what's going on, it is hard. I will give personal techniques. Now, I get the benefit of literally get to going to the AAA studios, and then when I see them, they make me play their newest title that's coming out. And I'm terrible at FPS games, by the way. So a QA person had to say, stop killing player 8, in this play session that we're doing. But, if you're reading out there, I find, you're going to be reading the standards. You're going to be reading Pocket Gamer for mobile. You're going to be reading, everything from TechCrunch to VentureBeats. You're going to be reading. And by the way, the easiest way I find to do that is connect as many people you can in LinkedIn, and your LinkedIn feed starts actually giving you all the way signs to the content. And so my content in LinkedIn feed is very rich. And there's lots of things I don't have to go track in an individual periodical to know how to find.
Great. Final question, then we'll do a quick wrap up. And I'd like each of you to maybe try to tackle this for 30 seconds. We get a variant of this question almost every session. The question goes something like this. So there's a lot of heavyweights in the industry already, fully implanted. I guess you could argue, Unity is one, certainly Meta is another. How does a company that's the small studio, independent startup, how do they hope to compete and get into this metaverse space?
You want to take that, Ryan, or you want me?
Oh, you take first lamps. I'll build
Okay.
on this.
Yeah. So look, I believe that if you take a tool like UGS and you are more efficient because of it, you're doing less work that is commodity, and you're trying immediately to go take your shot. What is your unique proposition? Doing a good job selecting your underlying technology platform gives you the best chance possible as a startup to make it. You don't have to be a behemoth to make it. We've had smash hits come out of nowhere in the Unity ecosystem all the time. So if you're a startup, whether you're in gaming or whether you're in something else, try to make smart decisions about tech. Don't overbuild, and then take your hypothesis, test it, iterate. The world will always be conducive to having startups. And the big players do not crush all competition. They just get big and slow and old.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
do you're going to do.
just I double down on that. Every new technology transition, there are winners and losers. So think about when Microsoft came out, think about the Googles and the Facebooks, Amazons, they all came out of these technology technology transformation periods. And we're going to have the same thing happen again. So, because they're not going to invest right in the right areas. And so I actually think this is the best time for companies to ensure that they remain relevant, and for an entrepreneur to actually go after their dream.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We're at time. I want to first thank Jeff, our special guest today. Thank you for joining us. Ryan, as always, thank you for continuing to host this series. I would also like to thank all those people behind the scenes, Levan, Kathleen, Kenneth, that you don't get to see their faces, but they make this happen every single episode. I want to thank all of you for joining today. We had a great turnout. Just a reminder, you will get an email in the next couple of days with the downloadable recording where you can view the whole episode on demand. And stay tuned. We'll be announcing episode 7 very shortly. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.